Okay, hello everyone. My name is Tom Geisler, and this is a special segment of Autism Inside Out. This is a presentation that I have been working on for a number of weeks now, actually, and many hours of work on this. And of course, just getting the concept. It's a very, very interesting, in-depth topic to talk about. And I've done a PowerPoint of this that I want to take out and actually do in public presentation. And while it's fresh, I want to create this as a video that people can give me feedback on. Neurodiverse, neurotypical, anybody. I think it's important that this starts a dialogue about this topic, so I'm not so concerned about you finding errors or whatever in statistics or concepts or whatever. But it is, I think, a very valid issue. I think it is a very unique perspective, an important perspective that is not being addressed. And I hope that you will see in this what I see in it. And it's very possible you don't. So let's begin. What I'm doing here is I've got my computer set up with like 24-inch monitors, and this is the PowerPoint being played. And so some of this print gets small, and I may be squinting a little, looking kind of weird. Okay. Just as a general introduction to me, I'm Tom Geisler, or Thomas Geisler. I was just diagnosed on the 2nd of February, or the 21st of February of 2018. I had been previously diagnosed attention deficit disorder, ADHD, I think it was then officially, dyslexia, cross dominance, and I was hypoxic at birth, which they said caused brain damage. That was back in '71, about the age of 11. I have since then found, and I just actually made a mistake on this, I have to correct. I had put synesthesia and I meant to put alexithymia. I'm finding out all these different characteristics or traits or expressions of autism in me as time goes on. It's a lot more than I ever suspected. And I think I will find more as time goes on here. My presentation I'm calling A Mile in Their Shoes. And I say it's an autistic perspective because what I've learned in the process of discovering that I'm autistic is a change in my perspective from neurotypical, or thinking I was neurotypical, to understanding and accepting that I'm autistic. And this is brought up, what I'm presenting here. This has brought up an observation that I think is a key misunderstanding between the neurotypical and neurodiverse communities, and one of the main reasons why there is as much pain and suffering as there is in our community. And there is a tremendous amount of pain and suffering. It is no small issue. By our nature, we just tend to be kind of reserved, quiet people. But if you could hear the cries, it would be alarming. So what this focuses on is ND, neurodiverse, and NT, neurotypical relations. And it's important to understand those relations and how it affects the understanding of autism by neurotypical. And even, I think this issue will help neurodiverse people understand themselves better too, in relationship to the mainstream or the neurotypical society and culture. I think this is what will help us improve our quality of lives as neurodiverse people. This is the tip of the iceberg, which is why I put this picture. These are symptoms of the pain and suffering that I was talking about, that 2 out of 3 autistic people think about suicide as an option of coping. 35% will plan or attempt to kill themselves. I'm in that 35%. But what you don't see, the part that's underwater, you don't see the daily struggle. You don't see the constant struggle, not only with some of the traits of autism, but a lot of it is trying to maintain a life in a society that does not support the needs that we have as neurodiverse people. Albert Einstein had said you cannot solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it. And that's what I'm trying to do here, is I'm trying to get us to think about this whole situation in a very different way, and I think a more accurate way. And I think a way that can possibly lead to real solutions. The same level of consciousness that created it. How do we change our level of consciousness? Where I got the name of this presentation was, before you criticize someone, you should walk a mile in their shoes. Trying to get in the perspective of another person. This is what autism awareness is attempting. They want to say, look, we'll tell you about what we're experiencing. We'll go through all this stuff, and we just want you to understand that we've got special needs, and there's blah, 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 blah. And it just kind of has hit a wall. Yeah, the awareness is growing, but the suffering isn't stopping. The things that we need to accomplish through this autism awareness aren't happening. And this is why I made this presentation. Now, there's another part of this, before you criticize someone, you should walk a mile in their shoes, that I enjoy. That's why I included this. That is, that way when you criticize them, you're a mile away from them and you have their shoes. I just always thought that was the most clever way of amending that general thought. Okay, thinking outside of our normal perspective. This is how we learn and expand beyond ourselves. This is something all organisms do. This is why we have senses. This is why we have awareness. Because our environment constantly changes. We have to monitor it. We have to pay attention to what's going on around us so that we can survive. This is one way that we change our perspective physically. We go, and that's why I like this cartoon. It's like one person says boat, the other one says land, and they both want each other, whatever they got. It's just that after time, they've got these different perspectives. This is theory of mind too going on here. I just put that as a note for possible discussion about being one of the autistic traits. That some people have a very weak theory of mind. Now, thinking outside of our own normal perspective, I put normal up there because it's very important that we look at how we use the word normal. Because normal ends up being the cause of some problems in our thinking process. There are problems with how we maintain what we call our normal. Now, autism, I'm saying, cannot be understood by just a change in perspective. This is something beyond what we were looking at with the two people in the boat and that type of reasoning. And this is why we're having problems with autism awareness becoming an awareness of what our true needs are and the changes happening in society that we really need to happen. There is what's called normalcy bias. And the way that normalcy bias trips up people is the same way I think that's affecting the awareness of autism. Normalcy bias is where you take a intelligent, rational person and say, in 48 hours, a hurricane's going to hit here, category 5.5, 6, the strongest it's ever been recorded. It is ripping the dirt off the continent. I mean, it is like, okay, let's make this really, really, really scary. And the person goes, that's nice. And it's like, wait a second. We're talking about you're going to die if you don't leave. You got to leave. No, I'm not leaving. What is going on there? It's a normalcy bias. And let me go into this further. What is this normalcy bias? What is the roots of this? And how is this similar to what's happening with what's going on with autism? It boils down to homeostasis. This guy is sitting in that chair. Of course, there was a train coming. Let's say that was the hurricane. So this guy is sitting there in that chair reading his paper. And he's okay with that. Why? Homeostasis, the ability or tendency of a person or of society to keep conditions inside it the same. Stability. It's instinctual. It's what this person is trying. This is what this person is doing. He's saying, this is my home. This is my shelter. This is my food. This is everything I need to survive biologically, psychologically, physically, emotionally. All these things are because of where I'm at right now. And you're asking me to leave. Didn't say it's rational. Didn't say it's logical. But it is instinctual. That person is so sure that their survival is dependent on them staying there that they stay. Okay. So it's keeping the conditions the same. Stability. Homeostasis. What is needed to maintain homeostasis for the individual is also established in society, at the societal level. And I think this is very, very important right now to bring up, because the way society is around us, it is an extension of the individual's needs, of what the individual needs to maintain their homeostasis. The reason everything is happening, the reason we have the patterns of work and rest and the foods we eat, the ways we blow off stress, the ways, all these things that we do as a society are extensions of what individuals need. An individual can't live in a society that isn't meeting their needs or is a threat to their stability. And I bring this up because this is what neurodiverse people are trying to do. This is what they are faced with from birth. They are in an environment that is not keeping them stable on a homeostasis level. Of course, it's homeostasis and everything out. It becomes emotional, psychological, the whole thing. So society has evolved to meet the NT needs, and this is where the vacuum is for the needs for neurodiverse people. We need this in our society, the place that maintains our homeostasis. Homeostasis is brought about by a neurological resistance to change in the optimal conditions. You're instinctually, on a certain level, maintaining your heart rate, your blood pressure, your nutrition, your hydration, all these things that are absolutely critical or you die. And they're maintained at a subconscious level. That's why the guy is sitting in the chair with a hurricane coming. Because his subconscious, intuitive, instinctual side says, I'm okay. And this is where I am going to be okay, so I'm not leaving. Not rational. It's instinctual. And this is what ends up becoming a barrier between neurodiverse and neurotypical people. So, balance. If things are in balance, things are normal, and things are okay. Things are imbalanced. My stability is threatened. My life is threatened. That's abnormal. That's a threat. That is a very basic thought process, or, the instinct is probably going through this. But what has to be remembered is the normal ways autistic people maintain their homeostasis are often seen as disorders and abnormal behaviors by NTs. On an instinctual, even and an intellectual, rational level, it's a threat. We're seen as a threat to the homeostasis. And when a person is threatened, when an organism, any organism is threatened, it goes into the state of fight, flight, or freeze. And this one chart, it elaborates on that, of what happens physiologically once you're in your green zone, as this chart is showing, that you're in joy, you're in the present, you're grounded, you're curious and open, you're compassionate, you're mindful, life is good. And the line above that, which waves, is showing that, you go in and out of that. Life isn't this one humming along straight line that you're in the green zone. There's challenges all the time. In fact, I say the more the challenges that you can cope with, the better, because that gets you, that you're more flexible in your ability to maintain your homeostasis. This is what's wrong. This is what happens though with people that are autistic, is that they're way too long and often in the fight-flight mode, and they don't get back down in their green so they can stay there. Okay. So our neurology sets and regulates our homeostasis. Bing, 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 bing. Autistic and neurotypical people have a different homeostasis. We have different needs. That is, I think, the point that both communities need to realize. The neurodiverse need to realize it, so they realize, look, it's okay that I am autistic. I have to be autistic. I have to acknowledge what my needs are on a physical, biological, instinctual level. That's where my stability is. I need to be autistic. And this is the problem we run into when we try to... It's one thing to take a neurodiverse person and have them learn neurotypical skills. It's another thing to take a neurodiverse person and only give them a neurotypical environment where they cannot maintain their homeostasis. Okay. Why does the difference in neurology affect the ability to relate to each other? There is an instinctual connection between similar neurotypes versus it's instinctual versus rational, okay? And the best example I can give of what I an example that shows this bond that you could get when you've got close neurotypes is in this next picture. Identical twins. What do we know? What do we always hear about identical twins talking about the closeness they feel? And I was looking at this photo and I'm going, genetically, they're the same. Physically. And the importance about being physically the same is that any changes in the body affect the perception of life. The senses, their sensory input changes. The shape of the eardrum, the earlobe itself, it's identical on those two. And that means that they're going to hear almost identically the same sounds. Little subtle things make a big difference in that connection. That's why one of these girls can basically know just from the environment what their doppelganger is feeling and thinking. That's, I mean, the thought processes, and I mean, the how that all coincides. But this is just an example of two very similar neurotypes and how they can relate on an instinctual level to each other. Two very different neurotypes. I love this picture because to me this shows, one, just because you're different neurotypes doesn't mean you can't get along. But the problem is when you think that what you're relating to in life experiences is the same as the other person or the other creature, you know. And the example, the reason I put the sense of smell up there is because, you know, I mean, I don't believe the girl there thinks that, hey, this dog's loving this, that we're going to get a picture, and, you know, and then both of our tongues are hanging out. I mean, you know, the dog is not thinking that. Just the difference in the smell, the ability for those two to smell. A dog's sense of smell is from a minimum of 1,000 times stronger to 10 million times more accurate. And if that doesn't blow you away on an intellectual level, of thinking of like your vision, think of your vision being 10 million times more acute, 10 million times more information in what you see. And tell me then that you can say that dog is experiencing the same thing as that human. You can't intuitively, instinctually relate. Some things you can. There's basics of, are they both fed? Are their bodies saying, I need to eat? Oh, okay, good. You know what I mean? So there are some connections that can be made, but look how basic they are. And this is what I think is the reason that people who are neurotypical might resist when a neurodiverse person says, look, I can only work part-time and I need to be able to come in when I can come in. What's that? That is me trying to not kill myself. I'm being exaggerating there, but just a little. That is me trying to maintain my ability to even function. I'm not doing that because I'm lazy. I'm not doing that because, you know, I mean, no, this is different. This is me trying to survive. Okay? That's the point I want to make there. So, neural connection. The connection now, if you understand this, the connection then between autistic and neurotypical people is going to be more intellectual and rational. then it can be on a instinctual, intuitive basis, because there is less to connect to on those levels. Any instinctual, intuitive connections are going to probably be very basic or limited, put it in that way. And this is so important to accept, because if you start filling in, oh, I know what they feel. No, you don't. This is why you've got to, this is why you've got to keep that open mind and going. I'm thinking about kids, that are acting out or whatever. What are they saying? They're saying my homeostasis is fried right now. I need help. Well, the neurotypical person is going, I don't know what to do. I don't know what you're feeling. I don't know what you need right now. And this is why I think it's very important for the neurodiverse community to be there as much as we can as sources of information, as advisors, or we're going to call it counseling. We need to be there to be able to use our ability to intuitively and instinctually relate to what that child needs to try to solve that problem with solutions that child needs. Because the needs we know are different. We're neurologically different. What we need to maintain that homeostasis is different. And then again, added on to that, each autistic person is neurologically different. They're a different neurotype. No, that's not fair to put it that way. It's because there is a connection autistic people have with each other that I know exists with neurotypical that we don't have between each other. It's like the twins. Some things can go unspoken because they're like, yeah, I get it. I already know it. I feel it. It's in me. Okay? And that needs to be understood and accepted by both sides, because it goes the other way too. Neurodiverse people need to be taught about neurotypical society. We need to learn from you too, so that we can integrate into your society better. You need to keep that open mind and go, okay, I guess we can set this up so you can come in when you need to work. Well, that person's either is going to sit at home and do nothing and live with their parents, live with someone else that does work. They're going to find a way to survive. So we can either provide them with what they need to be stable, or it's going to cost more to have an unstable person that is needy all the time. Who knows how they're going to be meeting those needs? They're going to be drug addicts. I don't know what I would guess there's a very high substance abuse in this community. But you see what I'm saying is that understanding this and meeting the needs of autistic people on this level will probably cost society less in the long run. And it sure as heck is a lot more humane way for people to live in their homeostasis and in a comfortable life, instead of constantly trying to find that balance. All right. Normalcy blindness. This is what I think both sides again. And I want to say this too. I think you're going to find neurodiverse people are more sensitive an understanding of this topic and this perspective, because we are constantly dealing with, this is what's provided to try to give me a balance. It's not working. What do I need? So we're doing this comparison, like, okay, this is what's out there in society, but this is what I need. So there's this constant exchange. We're thinking about it, and we're living it, and we're feeling it constantly. The neurotypicals won't have to do that. So it's a lot more foreign of a concept to them. All right. Normalcy blindness. Not seeing autistic normal and NT normal is different. Or not seeing the needs to maintain homeostasis is different. Trying to normalize relationships instead of accepting those differences. Walking a mile in the shoes. Remember that original picture? Trying to gain a perspective physically, differently. Well, we need to be aware that there's a difference between our conscious and our subconscious awareness and perspective. We need to remember that our neurotype gives us a bias to what we need to maintain our homeostasis. That the relationships that we are going to develop, at least at first, are going to be intellectual, rational. Okay, I get it. You need this in order to maintain this. Got it. Not, oh, I know exactly what you mean. I feel that too. You don't feel that too. It's not going to be there. And that these differences are not a right or wrong. They're what each neurotype needs to maintain their balance. Okay. I think this picture is in some strange way representing a very accurate difference in the singular road that you walk and what the autistic mind is doing right there, the highway. Okay. What is our differences, right? What is this mile? What is this neurological difference? I'm sorry. Well, these are actual photos, scans, whatever, of the difference between a neurodiverse on the left there, a neurodiverse and neurotypical nerve, the ending of a nerve. And that is a pretty marked difference. I mean, you consider there's millions of these, not just two. Look at the brain scan to the right. And I have to make note too that you look at the top, it says, this is a normal brain. I bring that up because you'll see here a little bit very shortly that the terminology, the way autism is seen, is unfortunately a very pathological perspective. But again, look at this photo or this scan of a brain. On the left there, you can see the blue region. That is this was the audio processing, and you see it on the right there. It's smaller. Okay. I think this may be what people need to see to realize why some people who are autistic have a problem looking you in the eyes. Because they're already struggling with the auditory processing part. And their visual senses are so great, so much more heightened, that they're seeing, and I remember this. I kind of learned to the eye contact formula because I learned sign language. And it's a different type of eye contact. But while I was in the process of making eye contact, I remember going through I remember what I was thinking. Oh my God, wait, don't look. I can tell they're uncomfortable. Oh shoot, you looked away. Now and you can feel how the whole flow of the conversation is just like going over this through a canyon, not potholes. I mean, because we're so sensitive, it's emotionally uncomfortable, as well as the whole conversation getting screwed up, and then your thoughts go 1,000 different places and in inaccurate ways. It's like, this isn't working. Homeostasis again. It's totally upset by it. So anyway, I digress. This is a list of differences in our brains. Larger when younger. The size of the different sizes in the different regions. The coordination and the connectivity across brain regions. Different brain concentrations of brain chemicals. Different ways of processing information. And I stop on this one because this is why we socialize different, we communicate different, we isolate, it's the brain is different, we process things different. Our interests are different. What makes us happy, what makes us sad, what we can tolerate, what we can't tolerate are different. Anyway, blood flow, electrical activity, the right and left hemispheres and the relationships between them, different. Think back to that original definition. Homeostasis is brought about by a neurological resistance to change in optimal conditions. We're doing what we do out of instinct and out of survival. That is what people say, well, why does an autistic person stem? You can always go back to this definition. It's what we do to maintain our homeostasis. Well, I guess it wouldn't be this definition then, would it? Every autistic person is different. I answer a lot of questions on Quora. And I try, when it looks like it's relevant to say, wait a second, remember, this answer is not going to be true for everyone. This is me, this is mine. I know people this answer is true for. But don't make that mistake of saying, oh, Tom told me this, therefore you're going to be this way. Don't ever assume that. Different neurological needs. So, what is the optimal conditions for an autistic neurotype? Are they the same as a neurotypical? Hopefully by now you're answering that no. Let's look at how autistic people maintain their homeostasis. Autistic developmental milestones are different. We are dealing with, as children, as infants, I would say from the moment of birth, if not even before. Who knows? I don't know if wombs are neurodiverse compatible or not. I would assume they are. So let's say it's after birth. Different developmental milestones. It means that as we're developing, and well, this would be the next part. As we're developing, we have different needs. Therefore, we achieve different things at different times, and we are achieving different things at different times. Social emotional reciprocity. Okay, how I feel, how I relate with other people is different. Yes, it is. It's going to be different. How I communicate is going to be different. How I develop relationships is going to be different. Using repetition in rituals. It's how we maintain our homeostasis. Focusing in on something, repeating something takes less brain power. And that's what we're constantly stressed out. Just being autistic, but then you throw us into a society or a classroom or whatever that is disrupting our homeostasis. We're even more stressed out. We even have to focus more. it antagonizes who we are. We start becoming, in a sense, maybe more autistic, or I don't want to put it that way. The things that we need to cope with, you're going to see more. You're going to see our coping strategy more, the more that we are out of our homeostasis. So if we're in environments that are not maintaining our balance that we need, we're going to be trying to maintain it. We're going to be running away. We're going to be hiding we're going to be sensory. Can't think. We're going to be doing all these things that people go, wow, those are autistic behaviors. These are autistic coping behaviors. Something to think about. Focused interest is the same as repetition and ritual. Sensory management, yeah. Now, there's a reason I put this down. It ended up being sort of an accident, actually. I got this as a list. I said, okay, what are the things what do we do that makes us autistic? And I went to the DSM-5. And I'm going to show the contrast. This is something very unfortunate. Now, I understand why the American Psychological Association and the medical field in general, there's a pathology perspective of things. You know, this is the normal organism, this is the organism when it's not working. But I think it's a real disservice was done when this model was sort of what's projected out into society, because society then goes, oh, it's an illness, it's a sickness, it's a disorder, it's a no, it's these sick people, it's these autistic people that are, and that taints, that changes what is already a very difficult relationship to establish when you're going, oh, those people, instead of, okay, there's a lot of adaptation that's there just on an even level, and without having that, oh, plus you're disabled, plus you're disordered, plus you're lacking, plus you're restricted, plus you're stereotyped and repetitive, and I'm just looking at all the words, that are used. And so I just wanted to bring that up as an awareness that you can look at it as disability, which on some people, the extreme expressions of autism are disabling. I'm not denying that. I'm not discounting that. But it doesn't mean all autism is a disability. It can be disabling. This chart I bring up to emphasize something else too. When do we need to start maintaining our homeostasis? I say it is from the moment we're born. I mean, that's not rocket science to have come to that conclusion, but what I think people need to be aware of is, what is that infant trying to do? What is that infant trying to maintain? Their homeostasis. What is it parents do with kids? They help them maintain their homeostasis. They teach them how to maintain their homeostasis. What do we do as adults? What do we do until we kick this planet and we leave our mortal coil behind? We're trying to maintain homeostasis. My point of all this is that we need to start providing the environment and the supports all during the life of autistic people, what they need to develop and understand themselves and how to maintain their own homeostasis in an environment that provides the mechanisms, the needs, and the supports to maintain that homeostasis. all of this is the big reason why there's the pain and suffering in my community. What I went through, what all the people I talk to have gone through, and what is continually going to be happening until we address this. We need, as neurodiverse people, to have a place that we can be stable in society, in our homes, in our families. And it just makes life so much more difficult if all we have, all this energy that's going into a mind and body that's on turbo drive constantly anyway, when we add to it environmental factors, outside influences, that as all organisms on this planet, all life forms, they try to maintain that balance. That's what we need. I don't know how else to present this, but that's what we need. This next slide, we're just about done. We have 2 more slides to go. These are the different centers and when they develop. And I'll just let you read through that, leave it up for a few seconds. But think about what kids need in school, at home. And I want to say this too, neurotypical parents, this is in no way a attack or insult. This is new ground. This is new for everybody. This is the perspective that we need to really deal with autism on a functional level. Not a medical level, not a cure it, but deal with what we've got now. And I suspect that if you took a child that's autistic, if you could take identical twins, let's say, that are autistic, you put one in an environment where they're constantly struggling to maintain their homeostasis, and one where they're constantly in the green, just like a regular child. What difference in their lives? What would we see? And so that it is our responsibility as autistic people to be part of the community that's helping autistic kids, and I would hope autistic parents and schools and those that can't intuitively and instinctually relate to needs, that they talk with people that can. So that means, neurodiverse community, you need to step up. You need to be there. You need to help establish these needs. You need to explain these needs. You need to advocate for your needs and the needs of everybody, and it includes those kids. And neurotypical people, don't misunderstand our struggle to maintain balance as not wanting to be part of society. It's just that we don't have the energy, we don't have the means. And wrapping up here, maintaining autistic homeostasis. This is the common ground on which we can build a bridge of understanding between two very different people. Seeing our differences as normal and not as a threat to each other's homeostasis. Supporting each other's special needs, and sharing each other's gifts. The wasted intelligence and capability, and I know we're supposed to be these unempathetic morons that are insensitive and don't socialize and can't communicate, but I think you're going to find once we are stable, once we have our place, that the gifts that you are going to see from the autistic community will be amazing. So, thank you. Thank you for listening.